Hi, Som. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you for having me.
You look like you're in like a think tank den. Like
I
there's
have a lot
so
of
much
books.
behind you in terms of materials. Is all of that mystery vibe, or is that your personal life
It, it
too?
is all it is all mystery vibe. Lots of design papers, research papers, medical papers, books,
Love it.
um, bits and bobs of building hardware. It's lots of things.
It
Yeah. In
reminds
fact,
me
in
of
fact, but this is just my study. In when we go to a lab, it's l- 10 times more, 20 times more what I have. Yeah.
It reminds me of like a professor's office, like because there's those professors that have stacks of papers all over. Like
Mhm.
that's like yours looks a little bit more organized, but that's kind of what it looks like. Like you think a lot.
It
So
looks like, but it isn't.
well, so we love to kick off our interviews with a personal story. So we want to learn about you first. So do you mind giving us a little bit of your bio in terms of where you're from? Where'd you grow up? What did you study? If you went to school, and like, how did you end up here co-founding Mystery Vibe? So tell us your story.
Yeah, yeah. I went to school forever. I grew up in Calcutta, which is a little city. Well, little, not literally, a little city near the east of India. And then I studied. I studied in school, and then I did electrical engineering. Um, so I did my undergrad, master's, PhD, postdoc. So I was like, how long can I stay in school and not have a real job? So I was 26 before I got out of university. And my PhD was in biomedical. So I was looking at eyes and understanding the anatomy of an eye and recognizing people through eyes. So it's a mixture of electronics in building camera systems and then software, understanding them, and then the biology of it. So working with doctors.
Wow, I'm
So,
so
and
excited for the pivot in your story. You're doing
yeah,
your
but you know
PhD in
what I
eyes.
do today is exactly what I did in my PhD, just a different part of the body.
Whoa,
Just
I
working with
cannot wait to
doctors,
learn more.
working with genitals, working at this same time on electronics and software and building hardware for it. So that's what we do. And after I finished my PhD, I continued working in that space of security, electronics, defense, national security, and I did that for 7 years, working in a company called Deloitte. And and during that time, I always wanted to get back to building stuff, like I used to in my PhD, is get back to building stuff in my area, biomedical, and and the thing that came up a lot is how do you improve sexual health after a major life event, like having a child, having menopause, recovering from cancer, having a surgery. So major life events. So that was the trigger point. And then sexual health suffers, but what do you do about it? And bringing that mystery back in the bedroom, which often gets lost. So that was the background behind why I decided to get back to building stuff from having a corporate job. And we started that 8 years ago. So it's been a while.
Wow, that's incredible. Is this your first startup? Or I guess I don't know if it's a startup anymore, but was it your first one?
No, my first startup was part of my PhD, building iris recognition systems, which is used in access control and airport security. Even today, you'll find them in airports. They look at eyes and recognize people. So that was my first company, which we sold in 2009 to Fortunation, a California-based defense company.
Incredible. So you're like, yeah, I've been down this route. So that's super cool. What I really am curious to dig in a little bit more into the like, you said you wanted to get back into building stuff, and then you realized that there was this huge need in, sex tech, especially sexual wellness after a life event. I I, I feel like that is random, like what was it, like how did you, what crevice did you fall into and find that was an existing problem, right? Because these are things we're not talking about. So how did you know that was something that needed solutions?
I think it was personal as well, to start with. I've been with my wife for 18 years now, and we founded the company together with another co-founder. And we always thought, how do you keep that mystery in the bedroom generally as a couple, irrespective of anything major happening like childbirth. And we have a kid now, and we obviously experience that childbirth, pain, recovery, and sex comes much later after all of that.
Wow.
So I think the first part is definitely personal experience, but equally, when I was at Deloitte, the 7 years I was working on various projects, a lot of the time I used to stay in hotels because of being on client side. And what happens when you stay away from home is you become very close to people and you stay together and you talk about personal stuff in the evenings after work. And most of the conversations were about relationships, about sex problems, about intimacy problems, which I think often people wouldn't talk about unless they feel they're close enough to someone.
Yeah.
So that's something I kept coming across over the 7 years. And I felt that if and I knew that I wanted to get back to building stuff. I just didn't know what I wanted to do again after working in eyes and biomedical there. I knew it had to be something to do with human biology. And then it kept reinforcing that if we could build devices for which help with sexual health, like with pain, with erection, with dryness, then it would have a significant impact. And
Yeah.
that's how we started.
One last question about you starting MysteryVibe. What were the reactions of folks? Like here you are, PhD, had a postdoc, biomedical engineering, and you had an eye company that you sold to the Defense Department. You're in Deloitte, and now you're like, I'm gonna go make vibrators to make, sex better. How was the opinion like of people around you, your
It was
family, your
it was a
coworkers?
mix. It was mixed. So my colleagues, coworkers, bosses, they loved it because they related to it, right? And
They
they
were
were
like,
all
he's
my
fixing it. What we told
yes,
them.
exactly. So they
Yeah.
said, please do it. And they were my early investors, so which is the best proof that they really
It is.
approved.
Yeah.
But this is a while back, almost a decade ago. It was challenging. It was challenging to get bank accounts. It was because I was very clear that we will say exactly what we do. We're not going to pretend we do something else, fill up the form with a lie, and then we get caught, and then we just get kicked out, right? So like, okay, we'll tell people, look, this is what we're going to do. And we couldn't get a single bank account. It took us ages to get a bank account. It took us ages to hire people because it wasn't cool back then to work in sex tech. I mean, sex tech didn't exist as a term, I don't think. And people were like, what? I don't want to work for a vibrator company. Or they'd say, I can help you, but don't tell anyone.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was very challenging back then. But over the years, it's become not only it's become better, I think it's reverse, and people embrace it and talk about it and help us, which they wouldn't care about, say, for a finance company. They'll be like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, tell us,
They
what
don't
is
care.
Mystery Vibe? What do you guys do?
We do two things. We make devices, medical devices, FDA class 2, designed by doctors to help with very specific sexual health issues like erectile dysfunction, arousal disorder, particularly peri and postmenopause, period pain, postnatal pain after childbirth, vulvodynia. So we work on all of these topics. We create, and our unique technology is bending and adapting vibration to deliver precisely to the points that need vibration. So that's that. So that's one part of what we do, and the second part of what we do is we write a lot of content, a lot of content, and the content is to answer questions and help people start conversations, because if they are able to start the conversation, then they can bring the solution into the bedroom. But without that, even if it's the best solution in the world that we can make, it's very difficult to introduce it. So that's us. I would say it's equally important. We spend equal amounts of time uh, building products and writing content and then getting it out there. So that's what we do to bring mystery back into bedrooms, or keep that mystery alive if it's there.
So it's incredible. So I'm on your website, and because you're mentioning medical devices, class two, uh, your website looks like it's just a pleasure zone, right? And that
Correct.
you're selling these pleasure
Correct.
products. Are these pleasure products the ones that you're getting FDA approval on?
Correct. So
Do
and this is
all
a really interesting.
vibrators? Yeah, do
This is a
all
really
vibrators
interesting
use?
point. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. They don't. They don't.
Oh, okay.
We have two websites. So the one you're looking at, MysteryVibe, is our customer centric, very much pleasure centric, and we have MySexMD, which is another website which is doctor centric, and that is you'll see it's quite boring looking, but that has all the information for doctors, so urologists, OBGYNs, they sell our products. But the reason why MysteryVibe is what we talk about is because it's the same thing as a condom. So if you go to a condom website like Trojan, right? They will never say anything medical
Yeah.
on their homepage, because that is a turnoff when it comes to sexual health. So condom is a medical product. It's FDA, device, right? And it is very much to, do with preventing pregnancy, preventing STIs, etc. But no marketing of condom talks about clinical things. It's not cool. So all the marketing is like, hey, have fun, have more sex, enjoy yourself, etc. We are exactly the same. The thinking is exactly the same. And the reason is 80% of people who suffer from sexual health issues don't go to a doctor, because either they suffer in silence or they search Google and they often don't find answer. But there is so much shame around it, is they simply don't want to admit it, even to themselves. So if I created a erectile dysfunction device and I put it on the website and I said, hey, look, this is a medical device. If you have a erection problem, buy it. Then 80% will think, I don't want it because I don't have a problem. So, but if I take the exact
Ah,
same device and I say, hey, look, have fun, have more fun,
yeah,
they'll say,
yeah.
oh, I want to have more fun. So it's really, how can we reach people and tell them, look, this is okay, enjoy it. You don't have to feel like you have a shortcoming, or we don't want you to feel like you have a problem. Just enjoy it. And so that's our way of getting it out there without the barriers that come with what is technically called sexual health dysfunction. And because it is what it is called, it's considered negative, like
Yeah,
you're broken.
yeah.
So that's why what you see on MysteryVibe is very much pleasure centric.
I love that. And listeners, I hope you're taking note. If you are planning your own branding and messaging around your product, oftentimes women don't want to be like, oh, you're over the hill now, you're menopausal, here's your supplements. It's like, how do you make a brand that says you are the wisest woman in the room and you deserve everything that your body needs to share your wisdom or whatever, right? Like, hear the difference within those. And so what you're saying is like, you guys really take the medical stance, but you're branding accordingly to what the consumer, is receptive to.
Yeah.
What are some forms of female sexual dysfunction that can be, solved or helped with your devices?
So the paper we have published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine is on a topic called GPPPD. So it's genitopelvic pain and penetration disorder. And there we saw a 5 times improvement in pain score over a 3-month period using the Crescendo device 3 times a week. And what that means is genital pain, pelvic pain, and penetration pain. So this group of pain, which is the grouped together, is one of the biggest pains in sexual health for women. Then on the other side, a study we recently completed, which will get published in a few months, is on period pain. It's applying the vibrator externally, whereas with GPPDD, it is inserting in the vagina and delivering vibrations. But with period pain, it could be just placing it on the abdomen and having gentle vibrations help with blood flow and alleviating pain. So that's the second one. The third study that we are running at the moment is with perimenopausal and menopausal women on how to get aroused prior to intercourse. So very specific point in time is prior to penetrative intercourse, how do you get aroused, and if that is an issue that you're struggling with. And then another study we're running is on vulvodynia, which is pain in the vulva, and how can vibration and what type of frequencies can help with alleviating that pain. So these are the 4 main areas that we have worked in. On the male side, we have worked in erectile dysfunction and delayed ejaculation. So it's the opposite of premature ejaculation. And the one coming up that we are going to do a study in is prostate stimulation, and to understand if there is a correlation between regular stimulation of prostate and reduction in the chances of prostate cancer, which is the number one cancer in men. So yeah, it's quite a lot of variety of topics, but the key is how do you create blood flow in an area. So that's at the very, very basic level, that's what we're doing, is we're using bendable, stretchable, adaptable material with vibration motors to deliver frequencies exactly where you need, whether it's on the penis, perineum, prostate, labia, vulva, vagina, clit, wherever it is, or it could be nipples, for example. One of the studies we did was how to multi-stimulate for spinal injury patients. So, for example, stimulating the nipples and stimulating the vagina at the same time. If the vagina had lost connection from the brain due to a spinal injury, how can we stimulate them at the same frequency at the same time to create a local loop to then create arousal, which would otherwise not be possible. So it's there's a variety of
That is
different areas that we
seriously
work in.
so cool to think about that. Like, how could you potentially stimulate something else in the body if another part of the body is kind of desensitized? And, oh, wow, that is really interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is that vibration increases blood flow, and blood flow can therefore help with pain in some of these circumstances. Why is that? Why is increased blood flow helpful for pain?
To increase blood flow helps with both arousal and pain relief. So if you think of, let's say you have back pain, okay, and you go to a masseur, a massage therapist, right? What they will do is put pressure and rub the areas where you have pain. So what they're doing is helping blood move around, get fresh blood delivered, and then hopefully it works and you reduce pain. So imagine exactly the same thing done on genitals and or on abdomen or wherever it is. The idea is massaging that area,
Yeah.
and getting fresh oxygenated blood coming to that area and helping that area heal, feel better. Yeah, to the same, very simple and same logic.
Is that because the fresh blood brings additional oxygen or white blood cells or
Yes,
other things,
yes,
things that the
yeah,
body needs to kind of clean out the
yeah,
pain, clean out whatever's in there causing it?
yes, correct.
Interesting. Um, oh my goodness, what was I about to just say? I have so many questions, that's why. So it sounds a lot like pelvic floor therapy. And I think that this is really interesting because we see a lot of pelvic floor therapy startups coming out. I think it's going to be this year and next year, we're just going to see them popping up everywhere. Some of them are devices. Some of them are like videos, like at home exercises. I haven't really seen a more of a sex tech, like, hey, here's pleasure, but also medicine and physical therapy. And so can you just speak to your angle and like, has that been like a super key to your success? Is that you're selling sex, but you're actually a medical company versus these other companies that are like, will, help your vagina pain, like here's this medical device, what do they call them, dilators, like here's a dilator, because that's essentially almost, it's like the very, very rudimentary version of what you're making, right? Yours is like 2022 high tech, that's like 1930s, but nevertheless, like just talk to me about that, because interviewing you, it sounds like you're a meta device company, but like you're selling sex and pleasure. So tell us about that.
Yes, and no, it's a really good point. It's a very important distinction when it comes to access to funds, particularly. I mean, there's obviously different things. If you stay within the medical realm in everything you do, your website, like for example, when you see our website, it's pleasure, and that's our goal. We don't want you to think it's clinical. So
Yeah, even in the name, MysteryVibe, right?
yes, exactly, right,
Yeah.
exactly. So so if you think of that decision founders have to make when they start their companies. Do I stay strictly within the boundaries of medical, or do I, do, let's use an umbrella, sexual wellness, which is a massive umbrella of millions of things. Do I do that? So the real challenge of doing what we do and sexual wellness is fundraising is really difficult, because there is still a lot of taboo around pleasure, and that's the key word, is pleasure. So, and equally digital marketing is difficult. So there's lots of difficulties. But going back to the condom analogy, commercially it makes total sense that you focus on wellness, because that appeals to 100% of the people. uh, if you make it medical, first of all, it will sit behind a doctor or a healthcare practitioner. You will not know it exists, right? Because typically medical devices are not direct to consumer. So,
Yeah.
so that's one massive barrier that you're creating for yourself, is you are waiting for a patient to come to a doctor, which is a massive wait. And
And of which
secondly,
we also know they don't go to the doctor
they don't
typically.
go exactly. And secondly
So
is even if they did go, it's only 20%, we're talking about. So that's the biggest differentiator between
interesting.
being a medical device company and that's it, saying that, doing that,
Mm,
which is fine. But I feel that will only serve 20% of the of the potential users, whereas being a wellness company would serve everyone. So that's why it was a difficult decision, because we knew, and we were told by all our investors, that if you stay true, like pure medical, but pure clinical, it will make your life so much easier. But what our doctors told us is, if you do that, you know hardly anyone will know you exist. Like, I can give you an example of a purely medical device, and it's a great device, and it was created more than a decade ago. It's called Viberect. It's an FDA device, and it helps with erection. But no one knows it exists unless they go to a urologist.
wow. Very interesting case study here for us as FemTech.
Whereas, if you, a lot of people will know Lelo as a sex toy company, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that's the difference.
Yep.
Is
That's
if
crazy.
because the whole point was, if we create these devices, we want to get them into the hands of as many people as possible, so they can, they're actually useful, not sit in a lab. And the problem with going down the medical route is, it will literally sit in a clinic and wait for someone to
Yeah.
come and take it.
And they wouldn't be as colorful as the ones you have on your website, probably
It
they'd be
Yeah,
like
it's definitely
white,
won't be as colorful.
Great.
Yep. White
I
box,
remembered
black
what
text.
I wanted to say about blood flow. So, through my journey in femtech, I learned that blood flow is actually really important for women's pleasure too. I always considered blood flow a men's thing, like, oh, men need the erection, they need blood flow. But women, our labias actually swell and our clitoris gets erect. And so is that part of this
Mhm.
too? Is that blood
Correct.
flow from this vibration is helping that? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Correct. Yes. You're absolutely right. There is, I would like to say, there's no difference between the fundamentals of male and female anatomy. Uh, you could compare the clitoris to the penis head. I mean, it's a massive organ anyway. It's very small, that's visible on the outside. But all of it is to do with blood flow, and the arousal is to do with blood flow, which is exactly the same for the penis. So, which is why we can create devices which are unisex, which work for both men and women at the same time, or any gender for that matter, because fundamentally the body works exactly the same way.
So cool. Does climax or orgasm help with pain?
It So it's a tricky one. Often you can't get to pleasure without overcoming pain first.
Yeah.
So so just to give you an example, let's say penetration pain, right? Um, if you don't address that, um, and you go for penetration anyway, it's going to be very tough, right? You want to address the pain first. So I think of pain as a barrier to pleasure. So it could be a step-by-step process where, let's tackle the pain first, sort that out. Then
Pleasure.
once
Got it.
that's sorted, then let's look at pleasure, and then how can you take that pleasure to the next level. But we wouldn't say, let's talk about pleasure and increasing that pleasure without addressing the pain first.
Very, very interesting. I was looking through your website, although very, pleasure focused. There is some really interesting, juicy stuff about your product design and production process. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, my favorite part. That's the whole point of what we started MysteryVibe to do is really, really understand what needs to be built before we build it. So our process is very simple. We we work with around 16 different doctors in US and UK. So we ask them, what are the big topics that you currently struggled to find a good solution for your patients, right? So let's take an example of the study we're doing, which is arousal prior to intercourse for menopausal women. Okay, they're like, we're really struggling to help them. Um, is Can we talk about this? So that's very much the start. The second step is we research and consult. What will vibration even help? There might be things that vibration doesn't help with, so that's not our area. Anything that's our main expertise. So let's say, if someone says you need to make something which delivers microelectric currents like TENS machines, and that might be the solution, but we are not the experts in that, so we wouldn't build it. So so the next step is, will vibration help? If the answer is yes, then the real research starts. How much frequency, how much amplitude, what's the location, what's the variation of that body anatomy, which we need to adapt to for 80% of the population. And then we start building prototypes, and then we start taking them to a point where it can be used by a person safely. And then we start doing small trials, 20 people, 30 people. And then we keep going back to the drawing board to keep iterating to a point where people are happy that this works for what it's supposed to do. Then we start to make proper production units.
So you do clinical trials for this?
So they're called cohort studies. So there's a small difference. Cohort study is you can do it on one site. What that means is, there's one clinic, let's say, 20 people, 50 people, etc. It needs a lot less money, a lot less funding, because they don't have to be randomized. The way our clinic does it is they just advertise to their patients who wants to participate, and then there's a criteria if they fit the criteria, and that's it. So it's just the main difference is where do you need to use the study for. So if the study needs to be randomized trial for something, like a compliance, then you do it. If all you want is to understand the efficacy of a product, then cohort study is sufficient. So for us, it's not for compliance. It's not to get anything. It's really to understand the how effective it is, and if it isn't, what is missing and that we need to improve. Yeah.
The papers you published, are those based on the cohort studies or those clinical
Correct.
trials? Oh,
Yeah.
cohort.
No,
Great.
all our papers.
Cool.
Yeah, everything we've done is cohort studies. Yeah. We
Amazing.
don't do clinical, because the difference is it could be hundreds of thousands, millions. Clinical trials are very expensive.
Yeah.
So so unless you absolutely, so the rule of thumb is, unless you absolutely have to do a clinical trial, you don't need to do a clinical trial. Yeah.
I have a question for you about like the able-bodied community versus the disabled body community. I've been thinking more and more about this, of the paradigm of people thinking that if you're disabled, you're asexual, which is absolutely not the case, right? And so you were mentioning like spinal cord injury, and like how can we increase their pleasure by sensations on their nipples versus their clitoris, or in addition to. So can you talk a little bit about, just from your experience, it doesn't even need to be really mystery vibes, but like your experience, 8 years working in this field, how do you see us evolving to making devices and accessories that people with one arm can use, or people who can't bend over, like
It's
put it
a
on
very good
themselves,
point. It's a
Yeah.
very, very good point. And it's something that we try to capture as part of user feedback for every product. So let me give you an example of Crescendo, which was our first product, and then Crescendo 2 is coming out, which is just the upgraded version of it. And a big part of Crescendo 2 is accessibility. So so for example, Crescendo had very flush buttons to make it really pretty. So the buttons where you couldn't see them. It was just like completely on the surface and very beautiful, and we as designers are like, oh, this is very cool. However, not very easy to use for someone who has dexterity problem, for example. So they're like, oh, it's the button. The button is very difficult. So what we did for them, because the product already existed and they had bought it, so we created a physical plastic remote controller, big one, big button, click click click. So that solved it for those who had it. But then we thought, okay, let's upgrade the product. And this time we have massive buttons, very easy to click, big lights, and it's just much more accessible. So that's one example. The other one was with Crescendo. We wanted it to be completely, beautiful, seamless, etc. So we did induction charging, and this is 6 years ago when induction charging wasn't even a thing. Like, no one had wireless charging back then. It was a massive uphill job training users on how do you even use induction charging, because no one had done that before, right? So what happened is, I mean, I've had questions from users saying, because it says wireless, it says, I have the product here, I have the charger here, it's not charging. Well, I mean, you're supposed to put it on top, right? But that is we learn as we do things. Like, sometimes it's not good to put too much tag because people don't like it. So what we did with the Crescendo 2 is we made, obviously it's still waterproof. We put this beautiful waterproof USB connector at the back, and it is so easy. No one's ever had any issues with that. So a lot of what we try to do, and there's obviously more to do, is just get feedback on accessibility and how can we make our product easier to use, every time we make a new version. But generally I would say, there's a lot of work to do on that for the industry as a whole.
What do you see as the future of sex tech and the future of MysteryVibe? What are some things you're really excited about?
Invisible products.
Invisible products. Ooh.
Invisible products. So there is a really, and this is core to what we do, there's a really famous design principle called enchanted objects. It was something created by MIT maybe in the 90s. And the concept is really simple. It says, if the tech is very good, you don't see it. Yeah. So for example, imagine there's an umbrella and you leave the umbrella next to your door, and the umbrella is just a normal umbrella on a normal day. If it's going to rain, it's connected to the internet. If it's going to rain later in the day, then the umbrella glows. Yeah. So when you're about to leave, instead of just walking out and then realizing 2 hours later, oh no, it's raining, you pick it up because the umbrella is telling you it's going to rain soon. It looks sunny now, but it's going to rain soon. So it's a really simple way to bring it to life is what an enchanted object is, because it's enchanted, it's like magic. Yeah. But it is magic only because the tech is hidden. It's beautiful, it's seamless. So so that's our design principle generally. How do you hide complex tech, make it super easy to use? But my dream is that we create tech that you can't even see. So for example, let's say, what if the ED device that we have, for erection, which is currently quite a big device, what if we had the materials and the electronics and the battery, which was nano, and it could fit in a condom, and you literally just wear the condom and it vibrates all around, creates erection, holds erection, and when you have intercourse, it passes that huge 360 vibration internally for mind-blowing sex, right? But you're literally just wearing a condom and it's hidden, it's all hidden. So that's my dream. Yeah, that's what I want to see happen in sex tech, or in generally with product design, is tech which is totally invisible, that people can enjoy without even thinking about it. Like, I don't want people to think I'm in the bedroom, I need gadgets to have a better sex life. I want them to just focus on their partner, themselves, the pleasure, the moment, right? Not think about, oh, I need to use a device, I need to turn it on, I need to do this. Like, that's all barriers. So that's the dream.
I love that. Do you find that is something you have to overcome in your marketing and sales funnel, is people being adverse to toys, in particular men potentially, that see this as a like an assistant almost,
Yes, so it's interesting because most of our buyers are men. So obviously for the male centric, like penis centric products, it tends to be men who buy it, which is fine.
Mhm.
But even for vagina-centric products, it tends to be men buying it as a gift for their partners,
Interesting.
and that is across the board in sex tech. So what we find is if the product and the messaging around the product is about giving more pleasure to your partner,
Oh,
then it is endearing. It's a positive thing. If it is to replace your partner, then it's not a positive thing. It may be fine as a product, but it's not seen as a positive thing by the
wow.
buyer or the buyer's partner. So it's really that nuance of it should be adding to the bedroom, making your sex better. It's like Michelin food. You go to a restaurant not because you don't want to eat at home, but because you want that extra fun that you can have once a
Yes.
month, right? So
Yes.
the sex toy is that extra fun that you can have, whereas without it, it's good, but then it's
So good.
normal.
Yeah.
Whereas with it, it's super normal.
Wow. Yeah, I love your thoughts about the invisible toy because, man, it would definitely help me whenever I move. And I have 2 boxes of sex toys, and I pray to the lords and the gods of the world that the movers don't drop that box and all my dildos fall on the floor. Like, it's like my biggest fear. And so that would be very convenient if we can make them invisible and no one needs to carry around boxes of my toys.
Yep,
Or my niece
agreed.
finding them in my
Yep,
closet,
agreed.
right? Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. We have 2 last questions that our listeners really love. So we have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that listen. What's an area in women's health and wellness that you think still needs innovating?
Ooh, all of it. Honestly, we're literally just starting. We're scratching the surface. There's so much to do, and it's great time because everybody, is starting now. Lots and lots of people are starting now or have in the last like 2-3 years, very recently. Um, if I had to pick one, um, I think menopause, um, and perimenopause, postmenopause, during menopause, because the it is every single woman will go through it, you know, because like I mean everyone lives till 80, whatever. Like, people have long lifetime, a long life expectancy these days. So let's assume every single woman will go through it. So it means it's the most significant thing, right? And like if you contrast it with pregnancy and childbirth, there is a lot in there, which is great, but not every woman will go through it. So if you just compare those two big topics, I would say menopause needs a lot of focus, a lot of work, and also it's something, if left unattended, will only get worse. And imagine, you could be living with it for 30 years with pain, with dryness, with all kinds of issues. um, yeah, I think the more we can do, and obviously a lot of things have started in that space, but the more we can do, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much research that we need to do in menopause in order to even figure out the exact mechanisms and problems, or so that we could even make solutions for it. I see us be, I see a lot of telehealth menopause companies showing up and supplement companies, but like that's pretty much it. And I think it's because we just don't know enough about menopause to even create solutions for what women
Mhm.
actually need, right? Well, and our last question is, what do you think the femtech industry as a whole needs the most right now in order to be successful?
Funding. Easiest
Funding.
answer ever. Funding, that's it.
Hardest
I
question,
read
easiest question.
easiest question. I read a really fun, but sadly true, a post on LinkedIn recently, where people were trying to set up mentorship programs to help female founders, particularly sex tech, femtech, and the comment was like, "Yeah, we don't need mentorship. We just
Stop
need money."
mentoring us.
I'm
Stop.
like, and like people got stuff to do. Just give money, and then they'll get on and build stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Literally, one
How,
word: funding. You get funding, and lots of great things will happen.
how has your experience been with funding? You said that your, early investors were like friends and stuff. Did you actually get venture backed eventually
Nope,
or?
never. Never in 8 years. We raised $8 million in total in 8 years through just from individual people,
Wow.
angels. That's it.
Wow.
That's how we and the problem, the biggest challenge with the medical device is you can't do it without money. It's literally physically impossible. You need to do compliance, you need to do testing, you need to do trials. Everything costs money. So you can't build any devices without money. And like I was saying, we are very lean. We only do things which are substantial. Like we wouldn't do a clinical trial just to look good if that doesn't serve the purpose, of what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, so we raised all our money uh, through very, very patient individual people who believed in us, and they said, I understand this may not work, but here's my money, and if you lose it, you lose it. And that's the only way you can invest in a medical, any startup, but medical in particular, because we had no idea when we started, will it actually work?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work, that's it, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing you can do about it. You have to keep trying till it does work. So yeah.
So because you're a sex tech company, you did fundraise from individuals rather than venture. Do you have an exit strategy? Because I'm always very curious about sex tech and your exit strategies because of all of the barriers to getting a bank account, getting, transactions approved, blah, blah, blah. So like, is there
Yeah.
an exit strategy?
There is, and it's a very simple one, and it's true for every medical device company generally. So what happens is once you have proved efficacy, which is the key of one or more devices, then you get acquired or part acquired by a bigger corporate in that space, whatever is the relevant one. And it is a really good fit because what startups are good at is innovation, what corporates are good at is distribution. And it's two very different skill sets, and capital. Obviously, you need money to scale. So what happens to almost every healthcare company, and if we talk about that as a bigger umbrella of which Sextech is a part, what happens in general with healthcare is you become part of a bigger company in that space, who then distribute all the stuff that you're building, and you continue to build, and which is what you're good at. Yeah.
Do you think there's a larger corporation that can distribute MysteryVibe?
Oh, there's loads. I mean, name any big, large consumer product company, any,
Any?
right?
Not even
Because
just in sex tech?
no, it doesn't. Sextech is just a very small startup ecosystem. There's no big company in Sextech. It's just generally any large consumer goods company.
Could you say Johnson and Johnson then?
Yes, exactly. Someone like Johnson and Johnson, because if you think about what they had before was KY jelly, right, which is a very famous loop brand, right? And they would sell that direct to consumer or via sub. So it's exactly that. So any
Yeah.
large consumer company would work with, Sextech. Yeah, correct.
Cool. Well, Sam, this has been so fun, so interesting. I thought, oh, this is another vibrator company I'm going to interview. And I looked a little deeper and I said, whoa, 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 this has some science in it. I love it. So this has been so much fun. I now understand why you have so many papers behind you, like a professor, because you essentially are. And I'm just so grateful for the work you're doing and leading the charge.
Thank you for having me.